What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gamecite Chronicles, the console gaming podcast where we sit down each and every week to talk about video games. I'm your host, Bonfire, and this is episode number 38. I hope you guys are all doing well out there, had a fantastic weekend, and hope you guys had a good Halloween. I totally forgot that the last episode went up on Halloween, and so I didn't even wish you guys a happy Halloween. So hope you guys had a great Halloween. Halloween for me isn't really my favorite holiday, if I got to be honest. I've never really been into the whole like spooky decorations or even going to like haunted houses and stuff like that. I enjoy going to like the pumpkin patch and do some of that stuff. Did that with the family, picked out some pumpkins, had some cider. I love like good apple cider, like true. You can tell it was like fresh squeezed out of those apples, like real apple cider. That's the good stuff. I love it. But the other thing I'm not really a big fan of Halloween is like costumes. I've never really been a big dress up guy. And it's funny because in video games and like video game culture, cosplaying is like huge. And some people are like do amazing costumes. Like they create their own. It's really an art. And actually it's kind of funny in talking about this. I used to follow a lot of like cosplayers, and primarily female. That seems to be very big on the female side, like on social media and stuff like that. And it's funny to watch them over the years, how they've gone from doing cosplay, going to different conventions and stuff like that. And a lot of them have geared into OnlyFans and more adult centric work. So it's kind of funny just how that plays out, I guess. But maybe that's a topic for a different day. Jesus, I can't even talk. I'm gonna take a sip of my water. Hold on. Man, this is not the introduction I anticipated. Anyways, back to Halloween though. Before I end this rant, I guess I did take my son. My son dressed up. We took him, did some trick or treating and stuff like that. So I think he had a really good time. And it's funny because he actually enjoyed handing out candy to people and seeing their costumes more than he actually did going out trick-or-treating and stuff like that. So I don't know, good times nonetheless. I hope you guys enjoyed Halloween. If you dress up, or let me know what you were for Halloween. Maybe an awesome video game character. So write in about that. Also, I want to thank you guys all for tuning in last week, listening into the show. Hope you guys also enjoyed the new segment, recent game pickups, that we'll kind of do on a probably monthly-ish basis. And I also put a video of that up on YouTube and Rumble, so if you want to check that out, please do so. This week has been rather interesting, I must say. Big news on the PlayStation side of things, definitely. So I feel like there's going to be a ton of talk about. So sit back, enjoy. I think we got a fun, meaty episode ahead of us. Now, for those that are new and uninitiated to the show, remember, the best way you can support the show is to leave us a rating on the podcast platform you're listening on. Helps us get into the algorithms, and I would certainly appreciate some ratings over there. Make sure you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, where you can also find the podcast and video clips and segments and stuff like that. And also, you can find me on Rumble, the YouTube alternative. So be sure to subscribe to Rumble, YouTube, or both, whichever your heart's content. You can follow me on Twitter at Gamecite Podcast, and remember to catch new episodes of the show each and every week, Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, for this week's show, we're talking PSVR2. A ton of PSVR2 news came out. We've got a ton of games announced, so we're going to dive headfirst into that stuff, and I'm pretty excited. And I made sure actually not to really read too much or watch any of the trailers for all the games until today, right before I recorded, so it's fresh in my mind. So lots to talk about in the PlayStation virtual reality space. Also, a couple other smaller news items I wanted to just touch on briefly. The Last of Us HBO show got a release date, so we'll cover that briefly. Modern Warfare 2, the new Modern Warfare 2, has broken franchise sales records, if you can believe that. So I do want to touch on that. And lastly, a game I'm very much looking forward to, Atomic Heart, finally got a release date. So we'll dive into that as well. But before we dive into any of that, we got to talk about the games that we're playing. Remember to write in and let me know what games you've been playing so we can incorporate them into the show. It's always a fun segment. For me, two games I've been playing primarily. First up is Signalis. And I touched on this last week. I just started it on Xbox via Game Pass. And I finally beat this game. Took me about 13-ish hours. My game clock, I think, got a little inflated. Maybe because it didn't realize I paused it and, went to a different app on Xbox. So it got a little inflated, but I'm pretty sure it was roughly 12 to 13-ish hours. Definitely not 6, like I saw one reviewer say on a website when I was looking kind of how long it took when some reviews went up. Like, how long can I expect this game to be? Definitely not 6. Like, this kind of gets into a different topic, but I don't know how, like, I've noticed when reviewers put about how long it took them to beat them, it's usually under what like the average person takes. And it's probably because, they speed through the game just to get the review done out, during embargo time. So I don't know. I think the only way you beat this game in like 6 hours is if you know how to solve all of the puzzles. But anyways, if you're new to it, it's not a 6-hour game. I think average is like 10 to 12 hours. Was what I was saying. And I think that's what How Long to Beat has now, as people have input that. But anyways, one of the things I realized is this game has multiple endings and a secret ending as well after you do, because I think once you restart, there's kind of a new puzzle that you can solve, and that's how you can get a secret ending if you can figure that out. But I got apparently the worst ending when I looked up all the other endings, but it is what it is. And it's funny because I remember when I got to the ending, I was like, oh, that's it. So I guess it clearly wasn't the best ending. But either way, I got to say, I think this game is pretty good. I really enjoyed my time with it. Like, really enjoyed my time with it. And I would like to go, I kind of thought about, going back and maybe getting a different ending or trying to get the secret ending. But there's just so many other games out that I want to play and upcoming, like God of War Ragnarok, that I want to make sure I have games kind of off my plate and cleared for those games when they come out. So I'm just ready to move on. Like, I enjoyed my time with this game, but I'm ready to move on. But a couple of things about this game. First of all, I don't understand really what the story is about per se, like the premise. I think I kind of get a little bits and pieces of it, and maybe an additional playthrough or two or getting the secret ending would help with that. But I think it's very interesting, to say the least, a very interesting premise, assuming my understanding of it is accurate. But one of the things I love about this game is and I touched on this last week briefly, and it still holds true today after beating it. I love how this perfectly encapsulates the PS1 survival horror era, like classics. And it's clearly inspired by the original Resident Evil and original Silent Hill. The mechanics are very similar. Puzzles are very, very similar. Like, it's just such an ode to those games, and it's awesome. I mean, from the shooting in the game, like how you combat with enemies, inventory management's huge. The safe rooms, the puzzles, the designs of them, the perspectives are just exactly that of the PS1 era Silent Hill and Resident Evil, like 100%. And I love that about it. Like, we don't get games like that anymore. And it was kind of refreshing in that take, that I really, really appreciated it. One thing I will say that was annoying is that there's a ton of inventory management in this game, because you only have 6 inventory slots as you pick up various items and different things to solve puzzles. And so you have to manage those 6 inventory slots throughout the entire game. So you're constantly going back to, your safe room, drop stuff off or pick something up if you need it to go solve the puzzle. And that kind of got annoying towards the latter part of the game. I understand that it's part of the mechanics in terms of, like, you have to maybe only take one weapon, just a little bit of ammo, and try to, get through the area and stuff like that. So I understand it, but at the same time, I do wish you could expand at that, because there are lots of items you're kind of picking up towards the end of the game. And it's like, I constantly had to go back to the safe room and drop stuff off and then go pick up stuff. Or like there was like a couple items I left in a room and I'd have to go back and get it. Cause that whole deal, that really kind of bugged me a little bit. So that I do want to call that out. The other thing I wish the game did is let you know when a room is completed. So, like, on your map, it'd be nice to see, like, if there's items to be found in there or some sort of secret, like in Resident Evil, right? It's blue. And once it's completed, I think it's red, or maybe it's vice versa, one of the two. But either way, it's there's an indication on your map to say, hey, you picked up all the items, you did everything you need to do in that room, so you can move on. That's not in that game, and maybe it's intentional. It's an intentional design decision there, but I really do appreciate that, because I know there were times, because of the inventory limitation, that I left items behind and I forgot about them as I moved on and found other things. So it'd just be kind of nice to have that as a partial completionist, if you will. And I really enjoyed this game. Like, despite the flat kind of, I guess, bad ending I got, I would definitely recommend this to fans of survival horror games. It's definitely, it doesn't really have jump scares, but it's kind of got that tension, very atmospheric, very dark. And, there are some moments where, like, I couldn't even see, like, an enemy and they'd pop out, and it, like, not a jump scare, but it's like, whoa, you startles you and you're like, oh shit, I'm trying to get away. And you're running, and then, it's got the, do I fight? Do I run? Kind of, you want to manage your resources type of thing that Resident Evil does very well. So I really liked this game, and it's definitely probably one of my favorite games that I've played this year. Definitely in the top 5. I wouldn't say it's a game of the year contender by any means, but it's a breath of fresh air style of game that we just don't get. And it kind of makes me think, like, I really hope we get more games from the PS1 era aesthetic. Like, I really loved this idea, because it's, even though it's the PS1 games don't look good by any means. Like, they look terrible. Like, if you look at the original Metal Gear Solid, that game looks so bad. Or even like the original Final Fantasy VII, very blocky, not good. But this game kind of balanced that to where it's still kind of got the very pixelated 3D models, and as you're kind of walking, you can kind of see the little stuttery almost frame rate, but it still felt modernized. And so I think if they can find that balance to do some of these PS1 era style games, I think that'd be really cool. And there's just something charming about it. And there's even an option actually in the settings to where you could have CRT mode, like you're playing on the original PS1. So shout out to these guys. I don't have the dev on top head, but shout out to them, because this game is fantastic, and I really enjoyed my time with it. So again, the game's called Signalis. It's out on all platforms, but if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you can download it and play it on there, just for your subscription fee. So check it out. Now, the other game I dove into, just briefly, is Bayonetta 3. Talked about this one. Been very excited for it. I've only played about 2 hours or so. I really just finished the first full main chapter of the game, past the introduction and prologue stuff. And I just forgot how stylish these games are. Like, the enemy designs, the music, the aesthetic of it. It's just so cool. I love it. It's so damn good. And I love how campy this game is. Like, Bayonetta's one-liners are it's just chef's kiss classic. It's good shit. I love it so much. And I also love how she's just the epitome of femme fatale. Like she's sexy, and the game plays it up, and there's like these almost like sexual innuendos in the game, but it's very insinuated. It's very implied. It's not in your face, and it's not grotesque in any way. It's for what it's worth, I think it's a very classy way to do it. You can kind of see and kind of get those, sexual undertones. Not that, again, I understand that there's criticisms out there like, oh, we shouldn't sexualize, women or game characters and stuff like that, but there's nothing wrong with a female video game character being presented in a very sexy way. Like, she's a good-looking character. Guys are attracted to that. So, anyways, the game's really fun from what I've played thus far. I will say the game, though, could do a better job at kind of introducing you to the combat mechanics, or kind of reintroducing you. I feel like it kind of expects you to remember, some of the mechanics from 1 and 2, and just like combos and kind of how to play the game. I'm kind of getting into the flow of it, but the first I was like, I don't remember how to do any of this. There are some little tutorials and like little menus that'll pop up, like, oh, this is how you do this and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just feel like it could be explained a little bit better, because they do introduce some new mechanics. One really cool one where you actually get to play some of the demons that she'll kind of collect, like big demon characters that kind of just kick a bunch of enemies' asses and stuff like that. It's really fun to do. But I don't know. I just don't really feel like I fully grasp all of the mechanics. Not that I'm supposed to. I'm still early in the game, but I just kind of feel like maybe give me the option to, go through some sort of tutorial would have been nice. I will say. The other thing I'll say is that I definitely feel like this game would look better on like modern hardware, like for sure. Like it does feel a little held back graphically wise on the Switch. Like it's showing its age just a little bit. It doesn't look awful by any means, but you can tell that it's being held back a little bit. And I'm sure it looks a little bit better on the OLED Switch. I don't happen to have the OLED Switch, but I could see it being, maybe a little more aesthetically pleasing. But that said, it's still a great game. I think it runs fine. It's fun to play. I'm excited to continue it more. Probably after I get done recording here, I'll continue my playthrough here. But yeah, those are the games that I'm playing. I'm excited. God of War Ragnarok comes out next week, or the week you're listening to this podcast. I'm very much looking forward to that. I actually took that Thursday, Friday off of work, so I could get a little bit more playing time in, dedicated, obviously outside of family and personal obligations, but just have a little bit more time to dive into God of War Ragnarok, because I'm very much looking forward to it. And the hype is real. Now that reviews are out, it's getting good reviews, like very, very good reviews. Everyone's saying this is the game to go up against Elden Ring for Game of the Year, which, I think we all kind of knew that. But now that it's here and people are, praising it, some people are even saying like this is the best PlayStation exclusive, period. So that's a high bar, but I'm very much looking forward to it. So I got that. And then I busted out my Vita just because I was like, man, I know there's some good games on here that I would love to play. And so I've kind of been poking around on that thing. And I've always wanted to play the Uncharted game on there. What was it? Golden Abyss, I think it was. What is it? I thought I had it digitally. I have it physically, but it's unopened, and I kind of want to leave it unopened, but I might open it and play through that. So, I don't know. We'll see. Lots going on, lots of games to play, nothing short of that. So with that, let's dive into some of those smaller news items. First up being the Last of Us HBO show. So it started out this week kind of as a rumor, or a leak, I should say, but it was later confirmed. The official release date for the Last of Us HBO show is January 15th, 2023. So really only like 3 months away. That's actually pretty quick. That's actually sooner than I thought. I was kind of expecting maybe like springtime, but January 15th, 2023. And it kind of makes me think, like, because you'd assume they're going to line up something game-wise with The Last of Us. Like, is that when maybe we can expect factions? Or some others have speculated, is that when the PC port of The Last of Us Part 1 comes? I think more likely the PC port. I could see that being kind of the more likely scenario. But after God of War Ragnarok, we really don't know from PlayStation what's next in terms of first-party exclusives. So who knows? But something to definitely speculate on. I have to say, though, I'm very excited for this show. I was a little skeptical because I still don't think this show has to exist. I'm kind of the mind that, like, even when part 2 was announced, I was like, I don't think we need this. Like, I felt like the first game was so good as it is. Like, just kind of let it be. But obviously they've expanded upon it. The Last of Us Part 2, I think, is a phenomenal game, but I didn't really enjoy my time with it, and I didn't like how they handled certain things, but we'll save that maybe for another day. For this show, though, from what I've seen of it, from like I think we got a little bit of a trailer, some little preview clips and stuff like that. I like what I've seen. And I'm very curious how they're going to portray the game's story with this TV show, because in kind of what'll be the same and what'll change, because there's going to be some things that change, and obviously it's going to follow, I would say, a somewhat similar path to the game, presumably. So I'm kind of curious on that. And one of the things I'm kind of really curious on is It does seem like we're going to get some backstory, or maybe via flashbacks of the Left Behind DLC for Ellie to kind of get some of her backstory. Because we do see that in the trailer, that flashback to the scene with the carousel. If you've played the Left Behind DLC, you know what I'm talking about. So kind of curious on that is, but HBO is known for quality shows. Like, they put out really high quality stuff. I mean, they just wrapped up the first season of House of Dragon. I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, minus the last season. I think we can all agree on that mostly. But it's quality stuff, man. It's good. It's good shit. And so I would expect that this is good. And so like HBO's quality is very high. That matches up with PlayStation's quality of games, also very high. So I think this is a good pairing. And so I think there's a lot to be optimistic about with this show. One thing I am kind of hoping that maybe this series will explore a little bit more, and I would much rather prefer it to have it in another game. Maybe I think a part 3 is inevitable, but if they did a part 3, I would love for them to explore this aspect, because it's always touched on, but I really don't feel like it's dove into, is the Fireflies. Like, I want more background, a little bit more insight into this Fireflies organization. I want to learn more about them, because there's this whole world outside of Joel and Ellie of crazy shit going on. The end of the world that like we have no insight into, really. So maybe we'll get a little bit more of that with the show. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to it, and we don't have to wait long. January 15th really isn't that far away. The next news item I wanted to touch on is Modern Warfare 2. The 2022 game has broke records. So as reported by VGC, Video Games Chronicle, the launch of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has generated $800 million in its first 3 days. And this surpasses the franchise's previous record set in 2011 by Modern Warfare 3, which is absolutely crazy. And just out of curiosity, if you were to backwards engineer that and divide 800 million by, let's just assume that the average cost per game is $60. I know the next gen or current gen PS5, Xbox Series X versions are $70. But on PC, I know you can get some sales and stuff like that. So I just decided, let's just do 60, just as like an average. But if you do that, that's like 13.3 million copies sold. And I'm not saying that's how many copies they sold. And again, that's just an estimated backwards engineering. That's not exact. It's not exact science by any means. But that's a lot of copies. Like, that's like what Elden Ring's done, I think, to date. Maybe just a little bit less. That's insane. But what I find fascinating about this is there's been a ton of reported issues with this game. So some stuff I've seen kind of floating online and doing kind of a little digging is that there's campaign bugs, campaign crashes. CNET has reported that players were being banned for no reason. I think this was reported by a couple of outlets as well, and I saw some people post about it on Twitter. So just a bunch of bannings that are mysteriously happening. It's missing what I would perceive to be pretty basic staple features. At least they used to consistently have these in the games, like leaderboards, ranked play, stats, challenges, barracks. And also, apparently the UI is atrocious in this game. And there's even like posts of players redesigning it themselves and, putting that up online. And I had an article here from Charlie Intel to provide some additional context here. So charlieintel.com reports, quote, Modern Warfare 2 is finally here, bringing the most successful Call of Duty of all time. But while players have been loving its core gameplay, they've been slamming the game's streaming service-esque UI, branding it the worst ever and calling for urgent change. Gone is the classic list of modes and options down the side of the screen. Instead, Modern Warfare 2 separates all of its content into boxes, forcing players to scroll horizontally to find attachments, camos, game modes they want to play. With there being so much backlash to the system, a new report claims that Infinity Ward are aware of the issues and will be bringing updates in stages. According to insider Ralph's Valve, a few flags were raised around Modern Warfare 2's UI ahead of its launch, where it described as difficult and invasive to design goals. Their report claims that the UI that we see at launch primarily boiled down to time, coordination, and working from home. Now Infinity Ward are reportedly in process of revising the UI UX for Modern Warfare 2. It's a work in progress. There's a lot of moving pieces, updates that have been underway, quoted the leaker. I'll end it there. But I find this funny And like I've seen screenshots of it and it does not look good. But the overhauls, like to where you have like a classic menu, like yeah, that just, I don't know, it seems basic. I don't understand. It's interesting. Like I love like UI, UX, like the like design think, design concepts, usability, all that stuff. I find it absolutely fascinating and really love that stuff. And so like this whole debacle, I just find super interesting. Like how can you botch a major game like this, the UI? Like who approved this? And I love the excuse, like a few flags were raised, it was difficult. It all comes down to time and coordination and working from home. Those just sound like excuses to me. Like this is your big AAA game. This is your marquee game. You knew it was coming. We knew it was coming 3 years ago. Like why? And you have, well, here's what I don't get. You have the UI from previous games. Like you literally could just, it seemingly, again, I'm no developer, but it seems like you could take that concept, mold it into the aesthetic of your current game and keep it. So there should be consistency between games. And it's like, it's one of those things, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I don't understand. But the reason why I find all this stuff interesting in terms of like just so many reported issues with this game and you see so many people complain about it is that despite all of that, it doesn't matter. They still made so much money and set new sales records, reinforcing the point that games can come out broken, I'll put broken in quotes, to a certain degree if the hype is enough and it won't matter. Like Call of Duty is such a behemoth, and maybe Call of Duty is the exception to the rule, but we see this with other games as well. I think Cyberpunk. I think there's other smaller AAA examples as well that just escape me, but this is certainly not the first game to do this. But games these games can just thrive on marketing hype and influencer hype to a certain degree, and people will buy this product sight unseen. I mean, this leads into kind of a broader conversation around like the current state of AAA game releases, but I just find it ironic that so many people complain about this game and all the problems, and there's so much negativity around Call of Duty, and in some ways it's like it's popular to hate on Call of Duty, but y'all continue to buy it. And so like they're not getting the message here. Like you wonder why it is the way it is. It's because it can be, and you're still going to buy it. So I don't know. Let that be a lesson, but nothing's going to change. Let's be real here. And the funny thing I've always thought about Call of Duty is, and I used to be part of this vicious cycle, but the game comes out, people hate on it, and play it for 3 months, and then they fall off it, and then it's all about the next game. Gotta get hyped out the next game, and when the next game comes out, they start to play it, they hate it, and then they go back to the old game until the next game comes out, which they've hyped up for the 6 months. It's just this vicious cycle, and it's just like, and you wonder why stuff doesn't really change that much. Like, I don't know. I'll get off my soapbox on that, but regardless of all this, I do want to play the Modern Warfare campaigns. I touched on that last week. I'm still keeping an eye on the first game, the 2019 one, to see if I can get a good deal on it. So I'll pick that up. Hopefully Black Friday is discounted or something like that. So that's where I'll start and dive in. And the last piece of news I wanted to touch on is Atomic Heart. So this is that upcoming game from some Russian developers. Their name escapes me. I should have that in my notes, but I apologize. But anyways, they threw up a new trailer, and I've gushed about this game, but they finally revealed its release date. The game will launch February 21st, 2023. And personally, I think this is not a good release date because it's just like right in the thick of game releases. Like, I know there's Dead Island 2 coming out. We talked about this on a few episodes back. I know Forspoken comes out. Dead Space comes out late January. Hogwarts Legacy comes out in February. Like, you're just in the thick of it. And then, we'll get to PSVR2, but that's right in there. Spoiler alert. So, like, you're just in the thick of the game releases, man. There's so much coming in the next few months. It's not even funny. But the other kind of interesting tidbit is this game is also coming to Game Pass day one. So, big win on the Xbox side. And quite honestly, I will probably play it there because it is the thick of, there's other games I'll be purchasing, and just to, assuming I'm still subscribed to Game Pass, which I believe I will be, might as well use my subscription and, take advantage of this game because it looks freaking awesome, I have to say. It was also reported by DualShockers.com, that the game will have 4 post-launch expansions, which is pretty crazy. So stay tuned for that. In the release date trailer they put up, it's pretty cool, shows some gameplay. It's all kind of fast-forwarded, though, and really kind of weird, almost hard to watch. But we do get to see like the main protagonist, a few other characters for the first time, and maybe kind of get a glimpse at who you'll be interacting with. So interesting from that perspective. But as I've said before, this game looks freaking awesome. I totally get BioShock vibes. It looks super chaotic. I love the premise of it. And I can't wait to play this. I'm excited to jump into this game. And we'll see how it does in this like very crowded window. Like, I'm really curious. Like, next year's Game of the Year conversation is going to be insane. Like, there are so many big AAA games that are slated to come out next year that it's going to be hard. Not only to play all these games, if you want to try that, but just to pick out what could be the best game. Because assuming like there's some bangers coming out. So we'll see. So now let's jump into PSVR2, because a bunch of news went up on the PlayStation blog this week, sharing the price point, the release date, and a bunch of launch games. So to recap, the unit will release on February 22nd, so a day after Atomic Heart, 2023, and it's going to have 2 SKUs. So the base package is $549.99, and this is US. It includes a headset, Sense controllers, and stereo headphones. There's also a Horizon bundle, which is $599.99, and that includes all of the above, or what I previously said, plus a digital copy of Horizon Call of the Mountain. There's also a VR2 Sense controller charging station, which kind of looks very stylish, I must say, that will charge your controllers and leave your USB ports in your console free to do other things. That goes for $49.99. And they said pre-orders for this will start on the PlayStation Direct website November 15th, with retailers to follow. And my initial gut reaction is like, wow, that's expensive. A little higher than I think I was kind of thinking of in my head, but honestly, I think the first PSVR was $500, so a little bit more expensive, and this is quite the step up from what I understand, though I'm no tech expert. But it seems like it's quite the step up, especially even just with the controllers, like the Sense controllers. Kind of makes sense, especially with inflation, all the manufacturing, all that stuff. So on one hand, it kind of makes sense, but on the other, like, that is expensive because it's more than the console itself. Like a PS5 is $500, and then you add this, which is more than that. That's no chunk. That's no chunk of change. Like, that is a chunk of change. That's not. I'm not trying to discount. Like, $500 is a lot of money. Is what I'm trying to say. Now, I've seen some people actually state that this is a good deal if you compare it to other higher end VR headsets. And again, I am no tech expert. I'm not in the PC. This is a console gaming podcast. I don't really play PC games at all. And so I'm not into the whole PC VR space like some other people are. But I've seen some comparisons to like the MetaQuest Pro and some other higher end VR headsets. And like spec wise, I think the PSVR 2 is pretty comparable, but it's, much more affordable. Like the MetaQuest Pro is $1,500 if I'm not mistaken. And so this, with pretty much having equal specs, at least from what I can tell, there's some better and some other features that the MetaQuest Pro, like obviously the MetaQuest Pro, you don't have to have a console to hook up to, for example, right? But it's a third of the price. Give it, approximately a third of the price. And then assuming if you want to include the cost of the PS5 as well, that's still 2/3 of the cost. So it's still cheaper to kind of get in on that front than it is with like a MetaQuest Pro. And again, I understand it's the Pro headset. So I understand that that's the higher end. And there are entry-level headsets like the MetaQuest 2, which is, I think, $300, $400. So a little bit more expensive than that, but you're also getting a higher quality, from what we can tell, peripherals. So if you kind of take it from that perspective, it's not actually that bad. So it kind of, because at first I was like, man, that is a lot of money. Like, I don't know. But then you compare it to the other ones. Like, if you want to be in the VR headset space, like, it's pretty expensive. So to have a high-end headset cheaper than other high-end headsets, it's like, okay, it's actually not that bad, you know. So alongside this news, though, there was another PlayStation blog outlining 11 new games outside of the Horizon Call, the mountain game we already know about, that are coming to the platform. So what I'll do here is I want to go through each of these games and read a little bit of description from the blog, just because they're going to do a much better job at explaining these games than I will. So I'll read a little description, share my thoughts on each one, and we'll kind of go through all 11. So first up is the Dark Pictures Switchback VR from Supermassive Games. And this is described as Switchback VR will take players for a multi-sensory ride on where they'll need to survive the terrifying ghost ship and its distorted apparitions, confront hideous demonic incarnations of persecuted witches in the 17th century New England, and then fight for your life against otherworldly vampires trapped beneath the desert. Finally, escape the horrifying World's Fair Hotel with a sadistic serial killer out for blood, and discover how your story connects these worlds on the sinister roller coaster from hell. And I watched the trailer, and it's like my initial reaction to this is like, this is just another on-rails VR experience, and it looks exactly the same like than for what their previous VR title did with Until Dawn, Rush of Blood. You guys remember that game? This looks very similar to that, just now with their new franchise, Dark Pictures Anthology. So, I mean, this is not something I'd play, and I'm not trying to totally shit on it, but not really my style of game. Might be fun for like a run through or two, but not very compelling in my opinion. After that is a game called Crossfire Sierra Squad from Smilegate. And this game says this is a first-person shooter which incorporates innovative features offered by the PSVR2. You'll be able to drop in the world of Crossfire in full VR, take the fight to dimensions yet unseen. A battle-focused shooter, Crossfire Sierra Squad will have you fighting a seemingly endless enemy force with high AI intelligence. It's a fast-paced, easy-to-learn FPS. So the trailer for this actually looks dope. This game actually looks really fun, I have to say. I've always wanted to play like a shooter game in VR. I never did that with the PS1, PlayStation VR 1, I guess. I know there's a couple out there. Some actually pretty big ones, like I think Arizona Sunshine and The Walking Dead, Sinners and Saints, I think are pretty popular. Kind of in that first-person shooter genre-ish. But this one looks really cool, I have to say. Watching the trailer, I was like, okay, I think I can get into this. And there's one point in the trailer that I thought was kind of cool, where the player actually catches a grenade, like a live grenade, and then throws it back. And I was like, that's pretty dope, dude. It looks really fun, I have to say. You can also play cooperatively, which is kind of cool. So if you have some friends you want to hop into and do, and I don't know. This one, probably out of all of them, well, maybe the next one that I think looks the coolest. So again, that's Crossfire Sierra Squad. I'm on board with this one, man. I think it looks great. After that is a game called The Light Brigade. This is by developer Funktronic Labs. And this game is described as, the world lies in ruins. With each passing day, the light grows dimmer. Only you can offer the world a glimmer of hope. This is an atmospheric experience enhanced by realistic physics-based gunplay, creating tense, heart-pounding shootouts. And then it says, as the last line of defense against the darkness, you will enlist in the ranks of the Light Brigade and journey into the sunken world as many times as it takes. Pieced together from shattered memories, these procedurally generated battlegrounds are filled with enemies lurking around every corner. You will be forced to strategically navigate through dense forests, frozen mountains, and forgotten graveyards with a steady rifle and light magic to keep the shadows at bay. So this one is actually a roguelite, like a first-person shooter roguelite. And I think this one looks super awesome as well. It's got kind of got a cool artsy art style, and I think it fits in perfectly to like what I envision a fun VR game being. Like I think the roguelike fits in perfectly there because you can play this game in small sessions, pick it up, maybe do a run or two, put it down. I just like the idea of that incorporated with VR. And I also like the fact that in the trailer, you'll see like you're shooting guns at the enemies, but then you can also use some magic. That seems like a really fun combo to do in virtual reality. It just seems like a really fun game to kind of get through the levels and just pick up and put down very easily. So I am this one is definitely on my radar here. After that, we have Cities VR, which is from Fast Travel Games. And this is stated as, let's see. It's a VR adaptation of the leading city builder, Cities Skylines, where you get to build and manage the city of your dreams. From small hamlets to grand metropolis, design road networks, manage your city's finances, and provide your citizens with the services they need as you buy land and expand your city. Don't worry, we'll make sure to help you along the way. So this is exactly pretty much what it seems. It's like SimCity in VR. Not really my type of game. The trailer doesn't really show anything too exciting. You know, it is what it is. I've never really gotten into these like simulation style, like city builder games, though there is one, what is it? Frostpunk. That game came out, in the PS4 and Xbox One generation, late in the generation. I think I have a copy of it. I just never got around to playing it. I think I picked it up like a Black Friday or something, but that game looked really, really cool. And that's kind of a city building sim style of game that I've always wanted to try. But other than that, I've never really gotten into these style of games. So this one is not for me. And then after that is a game called Cosmonius High from Alchemy Labs. That's Owl, like the animal, Chemy Labs, which is an awesome name, by the way. Like, that is so good. Like, seriously, that is a fantastic name. And this is described as a single-player alien adventure. Players take on the role of a Prismy. I can't read. A rare alien species that can adapt to any situation. Upon crash landing into the school, players find that it is alive and with delightful characters, but plagued by mysterious malfunctions. Players will unlock powers to help restore Cosmonius High to its former glory. Trailer kind of shows little bits of gameplay and stuff like that. This game seems really cute. I kind of like the premise, I have to say. It seems like it might be like a little fun little game to play. Not really something I would pick up day one. You know, maybe for me, like maybe on sale, something to dink around with. Like I said, it's really cute. Seems like a fun little premise. So, but it didn't really grab my attention. After that is Hello Neighbor Search and Rescue from Tiny Build Games. And this is together with it's described as, so together with Steelwool Studios, we're bringing you the most immersive Hello Neighbor experience yet using virtual reality in the all-new Hello Neighbor Search and Rescue. Mr. Peterson's creepy house takes on a new level of immersion in VR, and there's nothing quite as scary as actually seeing that familiar shadow tower over you just before everything goes black. You'll return to that house and take on the role of 6 neighborhood heroes as they confront their fears to free their friend who is held captive in a bizarre basement prison. You'll need to learn and master each of their unique abilities to solve puzzles, uncover mysteries, and make it out of the neighbor's house in one piece, all in the midst of trying not to get caught by the creepy neighbor himself. Just the thought of it sends our heartbeats racing. And so this one actually, the trailer actually looks pretty cool, I have to say. I've always loved the art style of these games, and I've always wanted to play the Hello Neighbor games, like try them out. I remember when the first Hello Neighbor came out, I think this was back in 2017, because I played it at the last PAX I went to, which was in 2017. I didn't think it looked cool until I actually played it, and I was like, okay, this actually kind of seems kind of fun, something I can get into. And I ended up picking up. I think I still have my copy on Xbox. I just never jumped into it. But it always seemed like a really interesting premise. Like the creepy neighbor, you can tell he's up to something, and you want to try to sneak in and see what he's doing. Like I love that premise. And now, like you're trying to save your friend in this one, doing it in virtual reality. I really like that premise. This seems like a really fun one. Definitely one I'm going to keep my eye out on. I'm not sure it's a day one pickup, but I think I don't know. There's something that just speaks to me about it. After this one is Jurassic World Aftermath Collection from developer Coatsink. And this is a reworked version of the popular survival adventure game, combines both part 1 and 2 into the complete collection. Set between Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, players crash land on the familiar Isla Nublar and find themselves trapped in an abandoned research facility. And I actually watched a trailer of this over on the PC version one. I think it was on Oculus, because I think this came out on Oculus. And I gotta say, I mean, it seems pretty cool. Really cool concept, at least. I really like the art style. It's because it's like Borderlands kind of drawn a little bit. So I thought that was really cool. For me, like, I'm not the biggest Jurassic Park fan. Like, obviously I love the original movies, but no, I don't love this franchise enough to like go out and play the game. Though it does seem really cool, because like in the trailer it shows them like sneaking around the facility because you're trying to get something from the facility, but there's a bunch of dinosaurs. So you have to kind of like sneak around, hide from the dinosaurs. You can do things to distract them and stuff like that. So I don't know. Cool concept, but not really. No, it doesn't really speak to me. After that is a game called Pistol Whip VR, which they don't have a developer here, but this is the award-winning physical action rhythm game where thrilling gunplay and dynamic tracks collide, creating a dreamscape world for players to blast, duck, and dodge their way through to become the ultimate action hero. And this trailer actually looks pretty cool, I have to say. I really dig the music and rhythm aspect, although it kind of seems hard because you're like trying to time your shots against the enemies with the beat of the music. It kind of reminded me of that one Doom style game that came out that I can't think of the name, but it was very similar in the sense that it has the Doom style gameplay, but the whole shtick of it is to take down the enemies and shoot the enemies in unison with the game's soundtrack. So I think it's a cool concept. Maybe a little nausea-inducing, at least from what I saw in the trailer, because it's very kind of fast-paced and all over the place. Not really for me, but I must say it's a cool concept nonetheless. After that is a game called Zenith: The Last City from Ramen VR. I think that's another good name, Ramen. And let's see. This is actually, I think this is another Oculus game. Hold on. I think it's a MMO VR game is what it is. Let me see what the description is. So it's a virtual reality open world MMO role-playing game. And it's kind of a little bit fantasy setting. Fantasy-ish, I would say. And described as an anime VR MMO. So, I don't know. This is not really my style of game. I never really got into MMOs. Doing this in a virtual reality, like, I don't even play MMOs really on console, like on a controller. So I'm sure as hell ain't going to play an MMO in VR. Though I'm sure if you had a group of friends, it'd be fun to, kind of dick around, stuff like that. But this doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. I have to be honest with you. But there are some new features that come with it. So a new player experience overhaul, new systems, some graphic updates, stuff like that. So check it out if you're interested. Then the next game is After the Fall from Vertigo Games. And so After the Fall is an intense co-op shooter set in a post-apocalyptic version of Los Angeles. Team up with 3 others after setting out from a survivor camp that is shared with up to 32 players at a time. Or if you prefer, head out in the city solo, take on hordes of mutants, towering bosses by yourself. That's an option too. So the trailer they have up here is about 2.5 minutes long, and it actually has some developer commentary, them talking about it. And it was really interesting because it seems like they're really taking advantage of some of the unique features of the PSVR2 headset, such as there's haptics, I guess, on the headset itself. And they were saying, like, if you get punched in the face by an enemy, you actually can feel it like buzz and vibrate on the headset. So it kind of adds to that immersion, which kind of seems crazy. Like, I can't imagine that feeling very good. But it's pretty cool. And I really dig. They also talk about the way, like, even you're changing clips in your guns feels pretty good. Really worked on that and stuff like that. So immersion seems like a big part of this game, and it looks really interesting. It seems like a pretty cool game. I like the premise of it. Again, not sure if it's a day one for me. Like, it doesn't appeal to me right away, but something I kind of want to keep my eye on to see if it might be something to jump into at a later date. And then after that, the last one here is Tentacular from Fire Punched Games, UG. And this is basically, let's see. Tentacular plunges you into the ocean-dwelling hulk of a gigantic, mild-mannered mollusk raised among humans on the bustling, eccentric island of La Calma. It's a physics-based adventure bursting with an inventive, immersive VR gameplay, heartwarming story, and oodles of humor. Solve puzzles using playful tools and build strange contraptions and spectacular structures, or wreak havoc with your lumbering bulk. So you basically play as this like octopus dude, and you just the trailer just looks like you cause chaos. I actually laughed out a couple times because they're just from when I was watching the trailer, which is like only a minute long. But there's just some really funny parts where you're just causing absolute chaos. Like, this is a game where you literally just F around with the physics and cause pure destruction. But you can actually like befriend some of the villagers or whatever, have conversations with them. So it's kind of cute, kind of humorous. Not a game for me whatsoever. Like, these games just don't have longevity, so I really don't find much value or time to jump into them. So like, it's funny, but just it's not really my cup of tea. And so those are all the 11 games that they launched talked about coming to PSVR 2. We also know Horizon Call the Mountain. I think Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Part 2. I think there's another one I can't think of, but quite a few games, I have to say. But overall, though, I'm not impressed with the lineup. Like, I outside of Horizon, like, I don't know what the marquee game is. If I'm just being honest. Horizon is obviously the big first party one, the big draw. It's using the big IP. But other than that, some of these other games, very experience based or kind of, one-offs. Some interesting ones like I got to say that Crossfire and Light Brigade, those two are the ones that stand out to me. Like, those look like really fun, like games I could really get into. There's just something about them that really appeal to me, but there's nothing marquee that says, hey, this is the must play title on PSVR 2. Again, Horizon's there, but I don't know if that speaks to everyone. I really wish they would bring Half-Life Alyx to the platform. I really feel like that would draw a lot of console players to it who, like myself, don't play on PC and want to try out that game. Like, I love the Half-Life games, at least from when I played in the Orange Box. And so I would love to try Half-Life Alyx because apparently it's an amazing game. I don't see why Valve wouldn't do it, but who knows? Maybe it's something they're working in the background and just not ready to talk about it yet. We'll see. But not having it would just be a huge miss, I think. I think the other thing that holds the PSVR 2 back is not having backwards compatibility. Like, I don't understand. And maybe there's some technical components that prevent it from happening, but not being able to play your PSVR 1 games on your PSVR 2 headset, I think is a huge problem. It's a huge miss in my opinion. And again, maybe this is another thing that's kind of being worked on in the background, just not going to be ready for launch, because it seems like maybe these games could be updated to work on the PSVR 2. But I don't know. I don't know if maybe it's just technically not possible. I really don't know, but I think that's a huge missed opportunity because I would love to go back to a couple games I just never got around to on the PSVR, like that Batman Arkham game and Moss, the original Moss. I never played it. So to have new hardware and be able to go back to some of those games I already have, I think would be super awesome. Like maybe they're upscaled, maybe a little smoother. Like that would be fantastic. Or even like Astrobot's Rescue Mission, which is apparently like one of the best VR, PSVR games out there. Like that would be awesome to be able to play that on this new device, but that's not possible apparently. And I think that's a big thing that's going to hold a lot of people back until they get some more compelling titles on the platform. So I can see why folks wouldn't buy in right away, not only due to the price point because it's very expensive, but also the kind of lackluster lineup. Now again, myself, I found a couple games that I'm super excited about that I would like to play, and Horizon is one that I'm worried I'd get sick, but I would definitely try out, just being a big Horizon fan. But there's nothing that screams like must play on this device. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how it performs sale wise, and if these things are going to be hard to get. I'm gonna try to get one day one just because I'm a big PlayStation fan and I'm an enthusiast, so I want to try it out nonetheless. But I can see why people wouldn't jump in right away because it is very expensive, and I don't know that they've made a super compelling argument with these lineup of games to say, hey, you need to jump into this platform. So that's all I got for this week's episode. I didn't go as long as I thought I would. So we'll be right about the hour mark. So not too bad, but let me know what you guys think about the PlayStation VR2. And question is, do you plan on getting one day one? And if so, what games will you be picking up? So let me know down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and hope you guys do well out there. Have a great week. Get some games in. It's a big week. God of War Ragnarok's coming out, and I am freaking stoked. Like, I am really, really excited. It's funny because I wasn't really excited kind of leading up to it, but now that it's like here, and reviewers pretty unanimously say this game is like 9 or 10s, like I'm okay. The hype is real. I'm ready for it. I got to refamiliarize myself with the story because I haven't played this game since 2018. I never replayed it. So I got to catch up on the story and then jump into this one. But man, I think we as PlayStation gamers have something to look forward to. And actually, speaking of that, I do have some other news to share that I've reached out to a YouTuber, a PlayStation YouTuber, him and I have followed each other for years, but just never collaborated anything. I'm going to get him on the show so we can talk about PlayStation. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be next episode, but the episode after that, I think, is when he'll be on the show. We talk on PlayStation. Obviously going to talk about God of War, maybe get his take on the Activision Blizzard stuff. So I think it should be good. It should be a fun conversation to have. So look forward to that. Remember, leave us a nice review on the podcast platform you're listening on. Be sure to subscribe to us over on YouTube and Rumble. And I'll talk to you guys next week. So until next time, I'm Bonfire, and I will see you online.